You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with my beloved Nets. No, I'm not being a Nets homer here. I think their win yesterday over the Heat by a score of 98-85 was the biggest sports story since I left you yesterday. I mean, what you need to realize is every game that the Nets play now is must-see TV. You've got a lot of people watching Nets games that would never watch Nets games. They want to see this big three. They want to see this team that's going to score 1 million points but give up 900,000. The Nets are the most must-see team in the NBA. That's something they've never been before. Even with Pierce and Garnett, LeBron's Heat were more must-see than them. The Nets' win last night is the biggest story. And look, through 3 quarters, they were really bad. They were keeping it close, but they could never take the lead for an extended period of time. Durant was breaking shots. Kyrie was breaking shots. Harden wasn't taking shots, which is absolutely infuriating. Let me just talk to James Harden directly for a minute. I love you, okay? I love that you're a Net. No one loved that trade more than me. In fact, I just got your t-shirt today in the mail. But you can't be so hesitant to take the shot. It's great that you want to distribute. Alright, you should be commended for that. But if you have the lane, drive to the hoop. Get to the free throw line. If you have the open three, take it. Don't make the extra pass. Be selfish on your own behalf. No one's asking you to dribble the ball up the court. Everyone clears out for you. You make some moves on your defender that don't work, and then you settle for a top-of-the-key step-back three that rims out. No one wants that. And you're not doing that, to your credit. But there have been a lot of moments where you've been hesitant to take that shot. We want you to take that shot. I know that there's a feeling out process. You want to get used to this new system, playing with the best players you've played with since you were traded from the Thunder. But you're James Harden. Maybe there could be some Irving and Durant pick and rolls where Harden flares out. Everyone's attention is on the driving Irving, and he kicks it out to Harden for the open three. Because for 3 quarters yesterday, James Harden was invisible. That can't happen. It's great that you want to get everyone else involved, but look, you're one of the best scorers in the NBA. We want you to do that for us in Brooklyn. Entering the fourth quarter, the Nets were down 1. Like I said, they were keeping it close. The biggest lead the Heat ever had was 8. Then something clicked for Harden. I don't know what it was. But Harden said to himself, you know what? It's time for me to take this game over. And that's an extremely underrated part of this big three. They are great fourth quarter players. They show up in winning time. Durant can take over games in the fourth quarter. Irving can take over games in the fourth quarter. Harden can take over games in the fourth quarter. And you know what? You saw that yesterday. Harden entered the fourth quarter with only 10 points. He scored his next 10 in just the fourth quarter. He took over. He was the closer. The guy couldn't miss. I really hope that snaps Harden back into it. Like, hey, we want you to take over. If Durant is having an off night, which is okay, everyone has off nights, then you've got to step it up. I mean, Durant only had 20 points. I say only. For Durant, 20 points is only. Shot just 6 for 21 from the field. 3 for 12 from beyond the arc. He had an off night. That's okay. That happens. But someone else needs to step up. For 3 quarters, it wasn't Harden. Now give Harden credit. In the fourth quarter, he stepped up. But I don't want him to be so tentative. He only attempted 10 field goals yesterday. He's gotta attempt more. Again, it's great that he's so unselfish. You've gotta admire that. Here's a guy coming in, is used to being the lead dog, and is now settling into more of a distributor role. You've got to admire the unselfishness. It's something that's very easy to point to if you're teaching young kids how to play basketball. Hey, here's James Harden, one of the best players in the NBA, and he's making the extra pass. He's content to give his teammates open looks. But the reality is, James Harden does need to be more selfish on his own behalf. Don't take contested 30-footers. But if you see you have a lane, or if you see you have the shot, and it happens organically, go for it. That's okay. That's what we all want you to do. But I do want to talk about some underrated parts of this win. The big three combined for just 56 points. That means that they averaged under 19 points between the three of them. You wouldn't expect them to win a game like that, but they did. Joe Harris shot the ball well. DeAndre Jordan did a good job on the interior. I agree with something that Billy Reinhart said. Jordan's not a bad player, but he is the weak link in the starting lineup. That is true. He can still hold his own. he'll get his, 10 points a game, maybe a little less. He'll get his rebounds. He'll fight for those loose balls. The number one thing with him is just playing defense. I'm going to be very interested to see how he plays against Clint Capella. I do think Jordan's getting a bad rap a little bit. I still like him. Solid player. Number one thing is just improving that defense. Jeff Green playing the role of the small ball 5 late in games, had 10 points. Let me tell you, Jeff Green is without question the most underrated player on the Nets. He fits this team perfectly, can stretch the floor, can battle inside. He's deceptively strong. And the thing with Green is, when he started, he had the tendency to be a microwave player. One game he was off, one game he was on. One game he was off, one game he was on. Coming off the bench in this role, where he's the 4th or 5th option at some points, that fits him perfectly. Because no one is expecting him to do a lot. So he's not taking as many shots. He's averaging 8 points a game, shooting 48% from beyond the arc, 56% from the field. He is playing an integral role on the Nets, and no one's talking about it. Give Green a ton of credit. And give the defense credit. After the Harden trade, people said that the Nets were going to need to win 130, 128 games. You know what? They just proved that they can win a game while scoring under 100 points. That's really impressive. They did a great job of perimeter defense. The Heat only shot 26% from beyond the arc. Just 37% from the field. Duncan Robinson couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic showed up. Give them credit. But Kendrick Nunn was dreadful. Iguodala wasn't that impressive to me. Kelly Olynyk was completely useless. A lot of that is because of the Nets' defense. They were contesting a lot of shots, putting their arms up, making the effort to be good on defense. You know what? That's what happens. You can really shut a team down if you just put the work in on defense. Now, guys like Adebayo and Dragic are going to get theirs. But the secondary players, the guys like Robinson, Olynyk, Nunn, Iguodala, Okpala, if you execute defensively, you can shut those guys down. There was another game that caught my eye yesterday in the NBA, and that was Lakers-Cavs, where LeBron James absolutely took over in the fourth quarter. Entering the fourth quarter, LeBron had 25 points. That's a really good game. Okay? Not knocking him. But entering the fourth quarter, the Cavs had a 4-point lead. No one else was showing up for the Lakers. Anthony Davis was non-existent. Dennis Schroeder was non-existent. KCP was non-existent. Kyle Kuzma was non-existent. Alex Caruso was non-existent. The only guy who really showed up other than LeBron was Montrezl Harrell. So you've got the Cavs on the verge of pulling off another major upset at the Q. But then, according to LeBron, a member of the Cavs front office started chirping him. Let me tell you the number one thing you don't do to a guy like LeBron James. You don't give them any sort of motivation whatsoever. All you were doing there was helping LeBron. You're giving him ammunition. Alright, that's what you think? That I can't hit a shot? I'm gonna show you. And boy did he. LeBron had 21 points in the fourth quarter. The Lakers won by 7. 115 to 108. Now, LeBron didn't divulge the identity of the member of the Cavs front office that was chirping him, which is a very good move by LeBron. It's a very classy move, because if he said it was Joe Schmo, he'd get a stern talking to from his superiors. So give LeBron credit for that. Give LeBron credit for still being able to take over games like he did when he was much younger. This is a real debate that people are having. Who's more impressive right now? LeBron James at the age of 36? Or Tom Brady at the age of 43? My vote would go to Brady just because he's older and he just had one of his best seasons. Most touchdowns he's ever thrown in a season. Obviously, going back to the Super Bowl, near the top in terms of most completions in his career, near the top in terms of most passing yards in his career. What he's done this year is nothing short of incredible. But if you want to say LeBron, I'm okay with that. I mean, the thing that LeBron's doing that isn't getting a lot of attention is he's playing the least amount of minutes per game he's ever played in a season. As it stands right now, he's at 32.7. He's never played less than 34. And he's still putting up 25 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, 7.5 assists per game. He's also shooting 41.2% from beyond the arc. That's the best mark of his career. I mean, it's not like Brady can say, you know what, I'm just gonna hand the ball off more, or I'm gonna do more bootlegs, or I'm gonna run more, whatever. No, he can't do that. Just based on who Tom Brady is, he can't do that. But LeBron can reinvent his game. He can distribute more. He can take on more of a three-point shooting role. Just based on who he is, LeBron can do that. Brady just doesn't have that luxury. He just doesn't have that skill set. It is an interesting argument. There's no question about that. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I'll start with Virginia absolutely destroying Syracuse 81-58. This year, Virginia has taken on more of a defensive identity. In terms of points against per game, they're the 6th best team in the nation. They've given up just 59.5 points per game. But it was their offense that really stood out to me. I'm not saying their defense was bad, it wasn't. Syracuse only had 58 points. But Sam Hauser and Jay Huff both had 21 points. That's a career high for Huff. He also had a double-double. Trey Murphy shot the ball well, 4 for 10 from beyond the arc. Reese Beekman contributed with 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. He's a very well-rounded player, Beekman. Very underrated. I like watching him play. Kai Clark had a very interesting game. 4 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. This is a scary Virginia team. You think of the ACC as being bad because Duke and UNC are not playing up to their standards. Duke is absolutely dreadful, and UNC is 10-5. They should be better than that. But the ACC has some really good teams. Virginia, FSU, Virginia Tech, Louisville. The ACC this year isn't as good as it's been in years prior, but with teams like the Cavaliers, the Seminoles, the Hokies, and the Cardinals, they're okay. As for Syracuse, this is a game that's going to make Jim Boeheim go absolutely nuts. We all know Boeheim and his 2-3 zone. His team couldn't stop Tony Bennett's team to save its life. They also couldn't hit a shot to save their lives. Only Quincy Guerriere and Alan Griffin had over 10 points for the Orange yesterday. That's not going to work. Buddy Boeheim couldn't hit the broadside of a barn yesterday. Marek Dolezaj, good player, only had 8 points. Joseph Girard, solid player, only had 8 points. This was a tough game for the Orange. They're not a bad team this year. They're 9-5, 3-4 in the conference. You'd like them to pick it up sooner rather than later. If they're gonna go on a big run in March. But I don't think they're a bad team. They're not great, but they're not awful. Moving on now to Texas Tech, West Virginia. One of the best games of the college basketball season so far. You've got Texas Tech, a team that has a defense-first identity. Can they score? The answer is yes, but Chris Beard likes to win defensive struggles. You've got WVU, a team that can't shoot to save their lives. They're the worst shooting team in the Big 12. I didn't think WVU had much of a chance to win this game. I didn't think they matched up well with Texas Tech. But give WVU credit. They were able to solve this great Texas Tech defense. They won a nail-biter, 88-87. In the Big 12 Conference Tournament, I really hope we see these two teams go at it again. I'd expect another great game. Obviously, the best player yesterday for the Mountaineers was Miles McBride. Now, here's a guy who's capable of taking over games, but he really doesn't do it a lot. It's more of a well-rounded effort. You've got McBride, Derek Culver, Taz Sherman, Sean McNeil, Oscar Tshiebwe. It's not a team where one player clearly rises over the others. But McBride did yesterday. He was fantastic. Had 24 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, you really wanted McBride to step up because Tshiebwe was out. The Mountaineers went small. They put Jordan McCabe in the starting lineup. He's a point guard. And not a particularly good one either. But, hey, it worked. Now, I shouldn't discount the performances of the other Mountaineers. Jalen Bridges had 13. Off the bench, Sean McNeil had 13. And Derek Culver, McCabe, and Taz Sherman all had 10 points. In fact, Sherman hit the big shot to make it a 1-point game with less than a minute left. It was a nice layup. Give him credit. WVU then got a stop, and Miles McBride finished in traffic, off balance over 2 defenders. Give Sherman and McBride a ton of credit for coming up big when they really needed to. As for the Red Raiders, this is a game that's going to stick in Chris Beard's craw for a while. But it really shouldn't. They played a really good WVU team incredibly close. It was at WVU with some fans in the stands. Mac McClung went off. He had 30 points. Off the bench, Terrence Shannon had 15. Would you have liked some of your other players to step up also? No question. Guys like Kyler Edwards, Kevin McCullough, and Marcus Santos Silva should have played better. But at the end of the day, Beard really shouldn't be that upset, and you shouldn't be upset if you are a Red Raiders fan. You lost a nail-biter. You lost a back-and-forth game. Could have gone either way. Texas Tech is going to be upset since this is their 5th loss. But all their losses have come against good teams. This is a scary Texas Tech team. They play these really good teams incredibly well. Houston, they limited to just 64 points. Kansas, they only lost by 1. Oklahoma State, they only lost by 5. Baylor, they only lost by 8. They narrowly lose to WVU. This is a good Texas Tech team. It wouldn't surprise me if they made another deep run in March. Realize, the most recent March Madness final that we've had, and this feels like eons ago, was Virginia beating Texas Tech 85-77. You know what? I expect both those teams to make big runs in March. I do want to preview tonight's game involving two ranked teams, and that is Oklahoma taking on Texas. A very short-handed Texas team. No Shaka Smart. He has the coronavirus. And God only knows if Greg Brown and Kai Jones are going to play. Brown is their best rebounder, and Jones is their sixth man. If those guys don't play, Texas doesn't have a shot in this game. It doesn't matter what Andrew Jones, Courtney Ramey, and Matt Coleman do. Those guys are all good players, but they're not going to be able to make up for there being no Smart, no Brown, and no Jones. It's just that simple. Smart, you can get away with. At the end of the day, he's not playing in the game. He's instituted a great system in Texas. Give him full credit. But I just saw the Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers with their head coach, Kevin Stefanski, at home. I just saw Tom Brady make the Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. Players are more important than coaches. The losses of Brown and Jones, and Brock Cunningham too, he's a decent rebounder for him off the bench. I just think are going to be too much to bear. And this is a very well-rounded Sooners team. They're very experienced. They can beat you in different ways. They're capable of scoring in bunches, but they're also capable of limiting you offensively. Lon Kruger has done a very good job with this team. The players who you need to key in on are Austin Reeves, Davion Harmon, Brady Manek, and Umoja Gibson. Reeves and Harmon are good penetrators, good mid-range shooters, good finishers. And Manek and Gibson are lethal from beyond the arc. They're both shooting over 40% from three. And defensively, watch out for Elijah Harkless. Transferred to Oklahoma from Cal State Northridge, and has turned into one of the best defensive players in the Big 12. Harkless is a very fun player to watch, very talented. Doesn't get all the credit he should. All in all, even though this game is in Austin, I don't see how the Longhorns can overcome all these losses. Smart, Jones, Brown, Cunningham. They're just way too short-handed to deal with this Sooners team. Truthfully, I think this is going to be a runaway. Give me Oklahoma by double digits. Tomorrow, I'm going to break down the Baseball Hall of Fame results. The results are going to be announced at 6 p.m. tonight. As you know, I love Hall of Faming. I look forward to this night every single year. Here's hoping we can have an induction ceremony. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that there's nothing in the world I wouldn't do for my girlfriend, and there's nothing that she wouldn't do for me. That's the way it is. We go through life doing nothing for each other.